What's up, everybody, and welcome in to a Friday edition of Big Man on Basketball. I am your host, Jeff Nady. We're wrapping up the week, the first month of March. It's First Friday. It's a big weekend in college hoops. The regular season ends. Conference tournaments begin. They've already begun, but next week is the real big week in college hoops. You got conference tournaments wall to wall, but some teams are still looking to find their way into the NCAA tournament. We're wrapping up the regular conferences and continuing. We'll actually have our first conference champion tomorrow in college basketball. We're here to break it all down as we normally do. Kelly in Vegas joins us. Kelly, how are you? Good end of the week here. It's a little rainy around here, but we're in that point now where you got games that mean a lot. You have games that don't mean much. You got tournaments. You got non-tournaments. How you doing?
Yeah, we spoke about this yesterday on Money Shots. Megan and I were kind of a head-to-head on a couple games. Congrats to her. She went 2-0 against me. I just went 1-3. Just a pitiful performance by UNLV the night prior. It's kind of starting to sit that little bit of regression after I had a pretty decent week and a half. So I'm okay. I'm got a nice list of so far 8 teams for Saturday. I'm going to spend the next evening narrowing those down before we do our spaces. Tonight's card, a little bleak, but I got a couple games I want to ask you about.
Yeah, I'll admit, I'm always pretty short as far as Friday cards are concerned. But today you have games all day. I've kind of focused a lot on the conference tournaments. I think though there is one game tonight that I do have some interest in. Quite frankly, that's not tournament related. So. That'll be kind of interesting. But I do want to tell everybody, first things first, Rough and Rowdy is tonight. Look, I'm just going to be quite frank. I'm looking forward to this card. I fought in Rough and Rowdy. I love Rough and Rowdy. I think it's one of the best things money can buy on a Friday evening. I've actually, as I told you, I'm not going out Friday anymore. It's just too much. So tonight, Charleston, West Virginia, which is where I fought in December of 2021. You got 20 fights tonight. You got some really big ones here. You got Bobby Lang, who is going for yet another win. The return of that scumbag piece of shit, Big Booty Daddy.
I saw some of the tweets from you with the Abel brothers.
Oh, yeah, and you got those two fucking inbreds. Listen, let me discuss this. So I want to talk about those two, but by tonight, you guys, if you're new or you're just checking this out for the first time or you're kind of on the edge, go buy it. It's a fun.
It's the cheapest entertainment you can buy. It is Absolutely hilarious. And I watched a little bit of the weigh-ins yesterday while I was trying to get some work done, and I couldn't believe Vicious Vicky, Cherry Bomb already going after each other. Like, I feel like that's how it would be with me, because you just gotta stay amped, right? I mean, do you have any advice as somebody who fought in Rough and Rowdy? Do you have any advice for somebody about to fight for their first time?
Here's the thing I'll tell you, and this is why, like, I think if I ever fought again, I would have a totally different outcome, because like when we fought the first time, I remember Portnoy told me, he said, I don't care how good you are in front of a camera. I don't care how, like, you walked into the office and everybody hated you. He said, nothing can prepare you for that. Nothing. The adrenaline, there's just nothing that can prepare you for it.
Right.
I think you just have to get in and do it. There's really no, because anything you have that the trainer will tell you, you completely forget. You're just trying to stay up and upright.
Well, your fight or flight is going to take over. And that's what years of training prevents, right? Yeah. From what I understand from professional boxers, from UFC fighters, is ignore that, work on your breathing techniques and control what your head is telling you. Because when you're in a life and death situation, whether it's in a ring or not, people have different responses.
I think that you have to realize, at least in these, like, I wasn't scared for my life or anything.
No, of course not.
Like, because the gloves you use, I mean, again, unless someone hits you really hard, it's not that bad. But you have to realize, I mean, when the bell sounds, that person's coming at you and looking to hurt you and hit you.
Yes.
And it's I think most of the people that are fighting tonight have experience fighting in a ring, but no, I would just tell anyone that they're, for me, it was different. Everyone hated me in that ring that night. In the crowd. I mean, Jerry was obviously the favorite. He was the employee at the time. But I would just say, pull the villainess in. You just got to have the adrenaline and don't let it get to you too much. Also, I would highly recommend to anyone that fights, and I know no one will tell you this. This is one thing I regret when I fought. I would highly recommend not eating all day. Like, I wouldn't eat at all. I would just
How do you have
drink
the
water.
energy?
Because you have what I liken as I don't like working out on eating. I like to fast to cardio.
Okay.
Essentially, you become in a way like a rabid dog, kind of. Now you're not like foaming at the mouth, but I just feel like, to me, I have a lot more energy personally. And I just think you're not going to starve. I mean, we have reserves. I mean, we all eat pretty well. I would say this. I think if you're going to eat, do it early in the day, just something real light. But I think for me, I made the mistake of, you hear these people, they tell you eat 2 or 3 hours before. And it's like in Charleston, where this fight is, I'm going to be honest, there's not a ton of great
culinary. Yeah. Would you have like a diner or like Denny's?
I couldn't find nothing. It was mostly fast food and just like pizza kind of stuff. And I ended up having, it's funny. It almost tasted like, egg noodles and ketchup. That's what I thought I was eating. It was horrific pasta. It was just a bad decision. Ate some bread. It was just not good.
I would definitely probably say eating bread would probably not be it, but
But yeah, go buy Rough and Rowdy tonight. Dave and Dan and Robbie Fox on the call. You got the sideline reports. Real quick though, I mean, weak punk ass move last night to, mess with Frank the Tank. Listen, Frank the Tank is our guy.
Come on.
It's cool if all of us kind of we break each other's balls, but when you have some goof out of nowhere who thinks he's fucking Floyd Mayweather, because I don't know, I guess he thinks he's something at Rough and Rowdy. It's just stupid. It's weak. And look, I'll stand up for Frank. Quite frankly, I'll give that motherfucker a slap. I don't give a fuck. I'll fight him tomorrow. I don't care. I might get beat. I might not. I don't give a shit.
I'm ready for the next Jeff Nadu Rough and Rowdy.
Well, I'm a totally different person, and me being, by the way, I don't think either of them have had any success in Rough and Rowdy, so I don't really know who they think they are. But that said, go buy tonight.
There's some rednecks from West Virginia. What do you expect?
I think they're from Western Pennsylvania, but same thing.
No offense, same thing.
Inbred,
geographically, it's like that part of Ohio, Western PA, West Virginia, parts of Virginia.
Right.
Listen, I'm from Kansas. I can only talk so much shit.
They're all the same low lifes for the most part. Inbreds. That's what they are. All right, guys, let's get to it. By the way, I do also want to quickly say, and this kind of is something I wanted to ask you about. Alex Murdaugh was convicted of 2 murders and sentenced to life imprisonment × 2. And O.J. Simpson weighed in on the comings and goings, which, listen, I will always say this, the self-awareness of O.J. Simpson is fascinating to me. I don't know if he's in, and I said this last night, I don't know if he's in on it or like if someone says to him, hey, like, it'd be funny if you comment on this, like, does he actually?
There's surely got to be like an agent or a manager or something like, OJ, what are you doing?
Yeah, or it's just like, hey, it's gonna get you a lot of views, so just do it. It's like,
to try to stay relevant.
Yeah, like I think like, and I think what that is that's probably some young person that runs this like life that tells him to do that. But it's like
maybe one of his kids or something.
Yeah. It's almost like there's probably people we'd like to hear opinions on this. You probably wouldn't be near the top of the list. And it's almost like he taunts people, which I have a real problem with. It's like, let's be honest. We know he got off in a court of law, but it's like, what about the family of like Ron Goldman?
It's terrible.
Brown? It's like,
have you went back? So it wasn't until I met OJ that I think I even tweeted about what happened. Short story. Okay. OJ lives in Vegas, right?
Yes.
You see him out all the time. My old house was in Summerlin. I'd see him out all the time. So I don't care who I see out. We talked about this. I'm not a big like celebrity person. I don't really give a shit. I'm not going to ever walk up to a celebrity. I'm not going to bother people. But my girlfriend, Nikki, and I were sitting at the bar, both blonde girls, both big boobs, just having some wine at a local place called Grape Street.
Mumbles on over.
And he's there at the end of the bar. And she's like, I want to meet OJ, da, 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 da. I'm like, dude, do whatever you want. And so I walk to the bathroom. I walk back out. She's over there talking to him and his buddy. And I just keep walking because I'm like, what am I going to say to this man? I don't know. Hey, nice to meet you. We got food over here or wine or whatever. So I say that and I sit back down. And like 10 minutes later, she's still there. And I'm like, bitch, am I at the bar by myself? Or did you come to have like happy hour with me? So she walks up and she goes, oh my God, he's so great. Blah, blah, blah. I go, bitch, you are a white woman with fake boobs named Nicole. And she just looked at me and I go, can you not remember what happened? So then I had to go home and Google what actually happened to this woman. Maybe not he, whoever murdered her, cut her breast implants out.
Right. Yeah, listen, Kelly, obviously I speak to killers all the time. I spoke to a killer an hour ago from state prison. He called me. Okay. I myself have even, like, when I interviewed Sammy Gravano's killed probably 10 people in his life. And the matter of factness of how they speak. But I will say, and all the times I've spoken to killers, they're all very kind. They all are likable. They're all, and I don't know if people just forget about it and just think, oh, well, but there is some weird kind of like attraction you have to them in a way. And I don't know if that's just the fact that they're infamous and we all like true crime.
I guess so. Some women maybe like bad guys, like that whole stigma, bad boys when you're in high school. I was never that type of girl, but
did she?
I don't know. I guess I'd have to text her and ask her if she was always because she never really had like a steady boyfriend, in the times that we really hung out. So that's a good question. But yeah, she was like so flattered that OJ like said something about her appearance. And, she was like, oh my God, he was so nice. I'm like, are you insane?
I will say, I mean, in the videos I've seen him in, I've never met OJ. He does seem likable. I mean, he seems pretty interesting. Maybe she was, who knows? But yeah,
some people have charisma. Some people have the ability to talk the talk, and
like me.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you talk about that. That's how you get broads all the time.
That's a key to doing that. And I think some people have it, some people don't. But yeah, well. Let me ask you, do you think if she looked the way she did, do you think he would have spoke to her or no? Probably not. Right?
Well, I mean, okay, like, let's just be honest. So we're women in our 30s. He's in his 60s.
Yeah.
There's a curve there because you're young, regardless, right?
Absolutely.
She is beautiful, but I also wonder if, it's just the idea of two women in their 30s coming up and talking to you, right? Like, my dad was married to a woman 20 years younger than him, and I always thought she was horrible, but she was 20 years younger than him.
Wow. I always see that. And if I ever look at my life 20 years from now, so I'll be 53, 54 years old. Like, I always saw my 60s as like, I'll probably be with a woman significantly younger than me. We'll never get married. And like, and maybe I'll find some spot where I'll have a kid and he'll have a good mom and I'll be a good dad. But like, I don't ever see like a white picket fence like most people have. Like, that's not, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not a white picket fence kind of girl. Yeah. I'm more of a find me an island oasis kind of girl.
Yeah, an end game. I could also see that where I don't get married and I just go over to like Italy or something and I meet a woman and we just, she's really a lot younger and I'm like a 6-year-old father or something. I could see that. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm glad, Kelly, you at least had your guard up to probably not act like he's some like,
I guess that's what you see. I mean, do you remember the really, really attractive light-skinned black man that was rolling around? I mean, he had significant tattoos, but he was a good-looking guy, at least as far as his face goes. And women were like dying over him on Instagram, over his mugshot.
Jeremy Meeks.
Yeah, and in real life, he wasn't that attractive, but for some reason in his mugshot, he was.
He actually ended up being he was an actor in some like little films.
Either way, women were losing their minds over him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm never shocked by the stupidity that women have. Well, and they wonder why they get chopped up in little pieces and left in terrible places.
Exactly. Real quick plug. Next week, I think we're going to do it next week. I'm going to be doing a quick little like 15, 20-minute video on my sit-down YouTube with Rochelle Ryan. And we are going to talk about that exact topic, women and bad guys, bad boys. And we're going to get her to rate some infamous people from the past. See what she
Okay,
thinks.
I love this. I
So
can't
we'll
wait
see
to
what
see
she
it.
thinks about bad boys, if you will. But let's get into some games tonight. We go from talking about the juice and cutting people up to talking about the MAC, which Kelly, you have said, I think you mentioned to me, by the way, Kelly, good call in sending me a game you wanted to ask me about that had like started an hour before you had sent me.
That is totally my fault. In all fairness, I had 2 games written down. I was like, okay, we're going to ask Jeff about these 2 small games tonight. Yeah. And I was in the middle of another show when I was texting you during commercial break. I just forwarded it to you. And then as soon as I sat down to log in for the show, I'm like, oh shit, that game already started. I was going to ask Jeff about Monmouth. I don't know what the Monmouth score is right now because I did not have my score app open. But we can talk about Kent State. How about that? They're about to start.
I'm going to talk about both those games. By the way, Monmouth won 100-64.
Glad I was paying attention today to start.
They couldn't miss from what I was seeing. They were up like 20 at one point.
Real
quick, so I want to talk about where this conference is. They have one game left, tonight or tomorrow. The only team you need to worry about essentially tonight, at least to win this conference, if Toledo wins tonight, they win the conference in the regular season. Okay. Toledo has won 14 straight games. They're on fire. They're on the road at Ball State University. Toledo's a 3.5-point favorite. Okay. This was 2.5. It's up to 3.5. Keep in mind, Kelly, Ball State actually beat Toledo. That was the last time, I believe, the Toledo Rockets lost. Back on January 10th. No, I'm sorry, January 3rd, they lost against Ball State. It's the first game of the conference season, 90-83. So they're in revenge and going for the title. Great kind of spot to be in. Kelly, there's a couple things you love here about Toledo and why you possibly want to lay the number here tonight. One of the best free throw shooting teams in America at nearly 80%.
Wow.
This is the second best three-point shooting team in America. This offense is awesome. I will say they can go up against any team in America. Gonzaga, any of the offenses you love and hold dear. Toledo is that good. I have to say I've been impressed more so with their defense recently. It's not the best in the MAC. It's not the worst in the MAC. It's just kind of in the middle. They do a great job, and they have a lot of upperclassmen not fouling, which is good. You know, as long as you don't put the team on the free throw line. As I said, in revenge, Ball State is also, from what I understand tonight, without Jerron Coleman. Jerron Coleman is probably their best player. And Jerron Coleman against Toledo in the first game had 26 points. That's a big loss. Now, they also have said that certain players would be out till the tournament, and they've played. I get a weird feeling tonight Ball State just kind of says, you know what? We know where we are in this tournament. You know, we're not going to give up, but we're not going to put people in that are maybe injured. We're going to give guys the night off. I think Toledo, guys, pretty good bet tonight. This is a great spot in revenge.
4 on the odds screen. There is still some 3.5s, of course, out there, but 4 is really probably your max. Would you go higher than 4?
I don't think I'd go higher than 4 because, again, I always say I don't go higher than 4 because 4 is readily available, and I don't need to go higher than 4.
Correct.
I think this is a real good spot. I think Toledo is a group that, you know, I feel like I have a good read on. I feel like I know the team pretty well. And Ball State, you know, again, you know, decent team. But the one concern you have with Ball State in this matchup is this is a bad three-point defense against a team that can really shoot the rock. So, you know, again, I know I haven't had a ton of success on this show recently, but I like this one tonight. I think this is a good one. You mentioned Kent State. They're in play tonight against Akron. This is really essentially for number 2 in this conference. Akron's 13-4. Kent is 14-3. So if Kent wins tonight, they get the 2 seed, which is where you want to be because you avoid the 1 seed until the final in this conference. Right. Kent, Akron, big rivalry. Okay, if you know anything about this matchup, these teams definitely don't like each other. I will say I think Kent's the better team. I think they're better defensively. And Akron, I don't know what has happened to this team on defense, but they've really struggled to me in conference play. It seems like all of a sudden they've had these games where they just can't get stops. They're also really dependent, Akron, on the 3 ball. I think if you parlayed Kent and Toledo tonight, I think that's a pretty good play, Kelly.
Money I actually was just looking at that, -170, -175. Interesting. Okay. I don't know a lot about the MAC. We all know that, but that Kent State play was from a good buddy of mine. The Monmouth winner, that I screwed around and didn't bet. Well, congratulations to all of you that had Monmouth.
But yeah, I think Kent's a good spot. Both if you're back in Kent and Toledo, both are at home. Okay, good spots for both. And I'd be honest, I don't mind laying both. But I think for me, the only one I'd actually play from a spread standpoint, I like Toledo. I think 3.5 is worth the look if you can get that out there. Isn't the line short for Toledo? It is a road game, and they're still a 4-point favorite. So, I think it's probably right. 7 point on a neutral. All right, Kelly, I'm going to throw out one other one. And then we also will do some Saturday games, guys. So if you have some Saturday questions, I want to do.
Drop them down.
Yeah, this is a small game, Southern Conference Tournament, Chattanooga and VMI. This is a really interesting handicap, guys, because the coach at VMI, okay, they used to be at VMI, is now at Chattanooga. Ooh. A guy called Dan Earl. He's the coach at Chattanooga. And Dan Earl has a fascinating way he plays basketball. He wants to shoot as many threes as possible in a game, and he do it at Chattanooga. They do it at a real high level, too. Now, Chattanooga's been without their best player, weirdly enough, a big Jake Stevens, who was also at VMI. He's now at Chattanooga. All I've heard is he is playing tonight. He's been practicing. He's been out for like a month. He's going to be back. Kelly, this is why this is important. In the only game he played against VMI this year, they scored 85 points. He had 37 points to Jake Stevens. This is a big get if he plays tonight. That said, I still think they can take care of VMI if he doesn't play, but getting him back makes Chattanooga a really dangerous team in the SoCo. Question is, do you want to lay it? How do you want to play this game? VMI can't stop you, me, and 3 listeners.
No, their defense just on paper looks horrendous. Basically one of the worst.
It's shockingly bad. I think in both games, one of which Chattanooga got to 85, the other I think was 79. This team is regularly giving up 80+ in this conference. They play really fast on defense, and Chattanooga wants to run. So I felt like the team total over here might be the best play because I think if there's one knock on Chat, it's their defense. They kind of remind me a bit of Toledo, quite honestly. But this is a really interesting one. Maybe you hit them hard in the first half, something like that.
Ooh, Chattanooga.
But I get a feeling Chat runs away. This one opened, I think, around 11. It's been all the way bet up to 13 and a half. So I think the sharp money understands Chat is just a better team than VMI. And I identified this as a mismatch, especially with Stevens back in the lineup. So just an eye on that one. Remember, the top seeds in this conference, Furman, Samford, groups like that. So, by the way, fun fact as well, Buster Murdaugh, the son of Alex.
Oh, great. Went to Wofford.
Good. Yes, correct. By the way, another plug for my show, The Sit Down. KB, yes, KB and I, Kyle Bauer, will break down the entire Murdaugh situation next week on The Sit Down. We're going to deep dive it. I'm going to give you my opinion as to, honestly, I think it's very surprising Alex Murdaugh was found guilty in such a quick matter of time as well.
So here's what I don't understand. And this is the question I posed last night when we were at the neighbor's house that, she comes running out, hey, they're about to announce the trial or announce the verdict. I said, wow, that seems kind of quick. And we sit there and watch it. And I said, can you tell me how you shoot 2 people with 2 different guns at the same time? And everybody looked at me like I was an idiot. And I'm going, I'm just curious how this all plays out. And
I think I'll just say this. As I've said time and time again, okay, someone may have killed someone, okay? That really doesn't matter. It's your job to prove that they did that, okay? Right. And there was some really good circumstantial evidence, but, that said, I just thought with how quick it was, I think that was clear they were going to – plus his influence, quite honestly, in that area. They were a very powerful family. But you look at, again, if you didn't kill them, the son, I think, is very involved with the friend's mysterious hit and run death.
That was odd.
The boating accident involving this Paul Murdaugh, the housekeeper.
The housekeeper also very odd.
Right. Yes. Plus, if you know anything about Murdaugh, he essentially pocketed her death settlement.
Which was wild.
Yeah. And he was like a quasi mother to Paul Murdaugh. So weird situation. But we're going to break it down. And we'll see what the fate is going to hold for Alex Murdaugh in prison because probably ain't going to be good for him, if we're being honest. By the way, did you catch the gambling connection that Murdaugh has? Like, did you hear him talking about betting sports at all? Did you hear that?
No.
Yeah, so there's a prison phone call that Murdaugh makes to his son.
Oh, he said he went 9-11 or something on Sunday.
8-1 on a Sunday, yeah. And then there's also
yeah, and he won like Slim Jims and like stuff from the commissary.
Stuff like that, yeah. But there's also a photo of the brother of Murdaugh and Buster Murdaugh in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I saw that.
Also, I've heard, is this true? Like, which I would not know that. Nor do I
mean, it kind of fits the demographic, right?
Yeah, good point. Maybe
at least from the South, he does.
He lives in Hilton Head, South Carolina. Maybe he's a golf guy. You know, I'm not saying he's a foreplay fan. Just saying. There you go. So a little connection. SoCo, Wofford next week. KB, me, boom. All right. Kelly, you mentioned to me a game you had your eye on tonight was the New Mexico Lobos against Colorado State. I will tell you this. If you got it early, this line has moved. It is very much in favor of the New Mexico Lobos. I'll tell you what. I think with Jalen House, I think with Udeze, I think with Mashburn, this is a really dangerous team when we get to Mountain West tournament time. And I'll tell you, Kelly, have you looked at I know you don't really bet futures, but you and I talk about this conference a lot. We all know San Diego State is probably the best team, but two of our favorite teams to talk about on this show are New Mexico and Nevada. Okay. And when I look at these conference odds, I want to get them up here. Mountain West tournament, San Diego State at Barstool Sportsbook, plus 135. Utah State, who's on the bubble, 375. Boise, they're in, 390. Nevada, 625. New Mexico is almost 10-1 at 950 to win this conference. Remember, Kelly, they were ranked at one point.
They were a solid team there until what? Probably that loss at Fresno State, and then coupled with,
let's just be honest, that was a tough spot for them on the road. But then they followed it up and beat Oral Roberts, beat San Diego State, beat Boise, and they had the stretch where they didn't win games, but Jalen House wasn't playing.
Correct, and he's back.
$950 is a good price on them.
That's wild. I'm going to look into that after the show.
You mentioned you liked this one tonight. I have to agree a bit. I think this team's really good. I think the problem I have here is, and maybe you've noticed this, it seems like every game they play in is decided by 5 points or less.
Unfortunately.
And that's my concern here.
I think it's going to be a sweat. I think it's going to come down to field goals at the end. And we know that, well, Colorado State's not the best free throw shooting team, but they just aren't a solid, complete unit. They just, lack of better words, Mountain West bottom feeders. They're just hanging out. Sometimes they'll surprise you and beat an Air Force team that is just the worst. And, beating UNLV isn't anything to write home about. I have not been impressed with this team. I think this is an excellent buy low spot on New Mexico tonight. And yes, I am a little late to the party because this one has ticked up by showtime, but I'm looking at this going, why not? Why not New Mexico money line at this point? I probably won't end up getting to the window with this team, but it was something that I wanted to talk about. And now you've got me, my wheels spinning on New Mexico at plus 950 to win the Mountain West. It's kind of a spot for them to really start to showcase their talents because they are a really well-coached, solid basketball team. But I think that, like you said, that injury bug hit them, and one loss, at Utah State turned into 4, unfortunately. And we've seen that time to time again with young teams like this.
Here's why I'm, if I'm going to be frank, I can't bet this where it is, but I'll tell you what I can do. There's two things about New Mexico I do not like. They're not a good defensive team, and they are not good on the road. And one thing I've noticed on the road when they lose, the common theme, Kelly, they give up a lot of points.
Yes,
and whether or not you like Colorado State, again, I agree with you. I think they are a bit of a bottom feeder. They actually play pretty fast on offense, and they're a really good 2-point offense. So I'm looking at 156, and I'm saying I got to kind of admit I like the over a bit here. I think you can get kind of beat up betting overs, and I have before. I still do. But you look at the first game, 88-69.
Well, that was a while ago too. So
New Mexico on. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Colorado State was 6 for 21 from three. You have to figure that's better. They had a couple of guys out, Jalen Lake and Devontae Jackson. Jalen Lake, I think, can give you probably 10 points in this game, and that could be the difference in the over. So I think for me, if I had to play this one, I'd lean over. But yeah, I don't want to lay points if I'm playing New Mexico. I just kind of want them to win here if I'm betting them.
That's kind of what I'm thinking as well. You mentioned Kent State. You mentioned Toledo. It might be worth a little two-team money line parlay with one of those.
Ryan Dillon says, what about South Carolina Buster Murdaugh over 2.5 assists?
Oh, geez.
Well, here's what I'll say. I don't hate the play due to the fact that if we talk about his family plus possibly the friend of his that died in a hit and run, maybe go over. That said, I keep seeing Buster Murdaugh's a sharp. Is that true? Is that possibly true?
What in the world?
A lot of people are saying that. Poncho, Al, Cliff, a lot of people are saying he's a sharp. He does have a lot of money at one point. Maybe he was. Who knows? We don't know.
He's a rich kid. It's not like all these guys that claim to be sharps and tout Twitter.
They're just rich usually.
Right? They're rich. They're rich kids that have giant bankrolls and trust funds. And it's funny to me because once I started to realize that, I'm like, that's why you're the way that you are.
Here's how you know if someone's a sharp. You don't know who they are.
Correct.
It's kind of like a mobster. Okay. Any guy that's coming around saying, I'm a gangster, I'm a mobster, they're not a mobster. If you're a mobster, nobody knows you're a mobster. And the only people that do know aren't the people. They're not going to tell you they are. You just kind of know, right? If someone says they're a sharp, they're not a sharp. All right, Kelly, let's talk a little bit about Saturday.
Yes,
because
please.
There's a lot of games that I think are interesting here. You have to tread lightly, but teams that need to win games, right? So West Virginia, they need to win. They're at home.
They do.
I think they're kind of right on the bubble. I think they're in, but they need to win. North Carolina has to win. Okay, they're out of the field currently. You also look at a team like Clemson. I don't even Clemson. If you beat Penn State, I think who does Clemson play? Notre Dame. That ain't going to put you in the field. But if you lose, that hurts you. You need to win to help yourself down the road in the ACC tournament. I guess I'll ask you, did one or two jump out to you?
So what I've got so far for Saturday is kind of an extensive list. Now, I have a question for you, and this is as I stick my pen in my hair. I have a question for you, and this is because I want to know, because you brought it up, must-win situations. So as a handicapper, we can talk about it all day long, but how does one quantify that? How do you decide that it is worthy of a play along with other things that correlate with that? Let's use West Virginia as an example, right? Here's a K-State team, hasn't been overly impressive on the road, a couple nice road wins, but they were just in the same situation, if you will, in Stillwater the other night. And I came on and I said, I'm not betting against K-State here. I know that K-State catching road points on the road, similar to Kansas this year, has kind of had its up and downs. But West Virginia strung together a couple nice wins, close loss at Kansas. They got my best bet to the window on Saturday. I'm just not so sure that K-State's just going to give it up that easy. And now, granted, this is just a one-game sample size of all the must-wins. But sometimes if you look at the flip side, you get to play spoiler. So Notre Dame's season is whatever, but they did just have a nice win at home. If they can play spoiler against Clemson, doesn't that kind of have the flip side effect?
Well, look, Notre Dame's going to play. I think you're going to get a full game out of them. I don't know who's playing for them, but you're going to get something out of them. I think with tomorrow, we already have lines for the game.
Yeah, we do. I'm looking at right now in the Barstool Sportsbook.
West Virginia is a 3.5-point favorite, which that's a bit high. That's a tick high, quite honestly. I'm going to challenge them to win that game because, as you said, K-State, very much a team that is very good on offense. I think it's one of the better defenses in the Big 12, and we know West Virginia has Jekyll and Hyde problems, right? There are games that they look real good, and then they lose at Texas Tech at home. I'll tell you a game, Kelly, and I'm very proud because it's not often that I get an opener ever because they get lost.
Yeah, they get obliterated as soon as you log in.
I played A&M 2.5 plus 2.5.
Yeah, me too.
already. That's already down to 2.
Yep.
You look at this spot. This spot, let me tell you, yes, give me this. A&M's at home. Okay. I've identified them. To me, I think they could be the second best team in this conference. And I know a lot of people are going to say, but they lost last week to Mississippi State. We were on Mississippi State, one of those spots.
We were.
This Alabama team, since the Brandon Miller news, now whether it means anything to us anymore or not, they have not played well in those 3 games. In fact, I've not covered any of the numbers. I identified this one. This reminds me a lot of when Alabama went to Oklahoma about a month ago. We were on Oklahoma, and Oklahoma had the best game they've ever had. I think A&M wins this game, but I'll take the 2.5. I want the best price here. I think anything as a dog I'm interested in, especially anything above 2.5. I like this spot for the A&M Aggies. I think they may identify themselves as a really good basketball team. This is a huge game in College Station.
Huge game for this team. It means a lot more to Alabama than it does to A&M. And I think the whole world's going to want to jump on Alabama in some sort of get right spot. A&M's covered 7 of their last 8. And honestly, they've been okay at home, right? But they've been really good against the spread at home. 11-4 against the spread, actually. Excuse me, I'm just going to say they've been okay on the road, but they're 11-4. This team got hot, and they stayed hot as a better in college basketball. That's what I like, is to ride these hot teams that have paid you dividends. That's why I have a do not bet list and a do not bet against list, because the teams that are just not playing well or rather inconsistent, I just want nothing to do with.
I'll also throw another one out. I think Baylor puts it to Iowa State.
I looked at that.
This Iowa State team, Kelly, you look at really since, let's just say the last 4 games, they've eclipsed 55 points one time in those games, all losses. Now Caleb Grill has been removed from the team. I don't know what's going on there.
What happened there?
No, I don't. I have to look more into that situation. I don't believe
I haven't heard anything other than something about it wasn't misconduct, but it was something along the he and the program weren't seeing eye to eye.
Yeah, and look, whether or not you like him as a kid or whatever, he was a solid player. He's a good rebounder. He's kind of a do-it-all guard for them, and they've fallen off a cliff offensively since he's been gone. Now, I don't think that's just going to flip a switch, especially in the last game of the season. This doesn't mean a whole lot on the road. Baylor has, to be honest, I think Baylor's, now that they're kind of, and again, it's all about health here, but they got JTT back. Everyone's pretty much back outside of Keontae George. And even without George, they're not deep, but they still have great guard play with Cryer and Flagler. Jalen Bridges has stepped up for him. Dale Bonner stepped up for them. So they're not.
It's almost like they haven't. I don't want to say they haven't missed George, but it's almost like they have 2 other guys that can step right in his place.
Exactly. And, it's a home game here. They've really kind of come on lately. I guess you could get like a one last stand kind of game from Iowa State as they head into the tourney. But what do you really gain by that? I mean, these teams are just, I think, kind of out of it. And that's why this week's very hard to bet. You have to kind of pick and choose the games you want to get involved in. And remember also with Alabama, Kelly, what do we know as well? Didn't they clinch the SEC regular season title the other night?
Yes, they did.
What are they playing for? I guess a number 1 seed, but
yeah, but I don't think even a loss at A&M is going to cost them a number 1 seed. Right. Do you?
No, they're still a number 1 seed. So it's like, what do you really have? They're going there. Another one we have a line for Arky -5 against Kentucky, which this one kind of screamed to me as well. I've talked about, look, and I know they've lost the last 2 games, but guess what? They were away in the last 2 games. They are a different team in what I think is one of the best home courts in America, in Fayetteville there. Something tells me this is a big bounce back spot for Arkansas. Nick Smith has been good for them. Kentucky is off a loss straight up to Vandy. They haven't really had any consistency. Last time they went on the road, they had a road loss a couple of weeks ago to Georgia, of all teams. So
yes, they did.
That's one that kind of
the bottom has fallen out in Athens. I can tell you that much. It has just been brutal the last couple of weeks. Basically, since that Kentucky win, they beat LSU, but 4 losses straight since then, and none of them even close.
I mean, Arkansas put an 88 on Kentucky in Rupp without Nick Smith. You're telling me a change of venue is gonna, is going to matter a ton here. Severe Wheeler's still out. Sheboy will be an interesting matchup and how they deal with him. I'll tell you right now, and I watched it, I thought Arkansas was elite defensively in the first half against Alabama. They completely walled Brandon Miller off. Because if you watch the South Carolina game, they kept getting beat off the dribble, South Carolina. And they had no help from a big, not against Musselman. Musselman completely got rid of that. So that's, I think, a good way to, not that Sheboy's as dynamic as Miller is with the ball, but yeah, I really like Arkansas. I think they're a team long-term that we have to start kind of talking about a little bit. And that's a good spot tomorrow night. Any other ones, Kelly, that you had?
There's a few.
Auburn as well.
Yeah, there's a few that are on my list. I think my best bet's going to be Texas Tech, and I'm going to hate myself for it because the other day I laid 2.5 with Texas Tech, and TCU came to town, and they ended up handing them a loss. But I think Texas Tech deserves a little bit more credit. More importantly, though, let's be honest, I'm betting against Oklahoma State. Dropped 5 straight, turns the ball over, worst in the Big 12 in three-point percentage. They don't make free throws. This team, they just say you quit. I mean, that KU game was a dead ringer to bet Kansas. TCU blows them off the court. They lose at West Virginia, get obliterated by K-State at home, Baylor at home. This team's cashing in. Avery Anderson, ever since he went out, this team's just like, we give up. Just show some mercy. And I think this is a good spot for Tech to right the ship, if you will, after those back-to-back losses to just, frankly, 2 teams that were better than them. Let's be honest. I do think this Texas Tech team, if they can limit their turnovers, it's not like Oklahoma State is going to capitalize on them. They should be able to run away with this one. Ken Palm makes it 2. Line came out 2.5, 3. I laid 2.5, but I think this line's only going to go one direction, Jeff.
I think you made a really good point. I don't know if there's a team that truly has missed a player more than Oklahoma State with Anderson. He is so dynamic on both ends. And as you said, the bottom has fallen out with this group as well. That said, I will make one case for them here. And I'm not saying I'm going to bet them. I think you made a good point. I think you had a good number. Both these teams need wins. I think Oklahoma State is more in need of a win. Oklahoma State I have squarely on the bubble. I have them out. But if you lose this game, now you have to win a game or 2 in the Big 12 tournament. Both teams need a win. I think.
Do you have Texas Tech in?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
They're out of the field. Oklahoma's out of the field. I think they would have to do a whole lot.
Yeah, and of course, guess who I like? Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma in this spot. Catching 1 at home. This is an Oklahoma team, Jeff, you brought up a little bit ago. They were so great. And then they just dive bombed after that Oklahoma win. And then they beat my Kansas State Wildcats. And then they dive bomb. Then they go win.
They're a weird team, man.
They go win in Ames.
Beat Alabama too. By
that's what I mean.
20,
And you know what it is? It's the games that they live and die by those threes. If you watch that Alabama game, they just laid into them and shot so many threes. K-State, same thing. K-State turned the ball over a ton in that game in addition to that, but they gave up so many wide open threes. And we saw the same thing just last Saturday in Ames. I had Oklahoma on my long list. I'm like, God, I just can't trust this team on the road. Now they're catching 1 here at home against a TCU team who's probably feeling themselves, right? Even though they gave up that last bucket to Texas, they didn't care. They didn't play any defense against Rice. He just shot a 3 and got the cover. But TCU, I think, is a little this is kind of a term that I've sold for my buddy Marco, fat and sassy. They're kind of feeling themselves. I think this is Oklahoma's chance to play spoiler here.
I still have no idea why they rushed the court the other night in that game.
And then I got KU fans mad at me. Like, you rushed the court against KU. And I go, well, first of all, I never got to do that when I was in college. Second of all, I've only got to see K-State beat KU once. And the last time I was in Manhattan, K-State was a 2.5-point favorite. So we did not storm the court. But this time, yes, we were a very small 1.5-point underdog to a higher ranked team. But yeah, I don't know.
If you're ranked at any level, you should not be storming the court. You shouldn't. I mean, it should never happen. Now, the Storm Chasers were there, and that's cool for them because they were there. But, they shouldn't have did it. That said, You know what?
I mean, I did
Oklahoma's-
love the video of Zaw getting like
Yeah,
crowd surf. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
I will say this about Oklahoma. You know what they're going to do this year, Kelly? They'll like run the table in the NIT. They'll be a good NIT team.
Huh. I'll make note of that. That's a really
not
good
gonna
point.
They're not going to be a good NCAA tournament team, and they're not going to get in. So we don't.
No, they're not going to get in.
But there you go, guys. A couple of games on Friday tonight. A couple of games on Saturday. Pretty good card. And remember, tomorrow you got plenty of conference tournaments. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'll talk about these games as well with these guys tomorrow. But I'll be there to give you kind of my thoughts on some of these conference tournaments that are continuing. You got some finals tomorrow. I know the OVC is going to crown a champion. By the way, OVC story. I'm not exactly sure how DeJuan Pruitt, who plays for Southern Illinois Edwardsville, doesn't face criminal charges on assault for a straight right to the face. That was ugly in that game. By the way, the kid that got punched was thrown out and suspended for tonight. That's a rough beat if you're him.
Yeah, that's kind of unfair if you're the one taking the punch. But I think the NCAA just plays that we're just going to suspend both players kind of card.
He was the instigator.
The aggressor, yes.
Sean says UFC's on. Yeah, so go listen to Spinning Back Fist. They'll help you with that. By the way, did you see Chael Sonnen mentioned maybe? Did you see that?
He did?
Yeah. He didn't really mention me. They mentioned me, and he mentioned that. So they mentioned, they were talking about the mob and like crime and stuff. And Jack Mack inserted my show, and he's like, yeah, we get this guy. He does this show. And he's like, oh, really? And Robbie Fox was just like along the lines of like, but don't bring your wife around him or something. And he was like, you think Jeff Nadu is going to steal? It was just funny. It was a funny drop.
That is funny. Love those random shout outs.
And John Jones fights tomorrow. So
yes, it is. That's a really interesting line. Now, I know I don't do a lot with UFC. Full disclosure, every once in a while I'll get some good information, but I think that is very weird. It seems very mispriced.
I think Cyril Gane is going to beat him, to be honest.
I think he is too. But I think that they're begging you to bet Jones.
Of course they are. Oh, let me tell you what this is. Okay, this is the hope that he's going to come back and be what he used to be, and it's like, well, I don't know if people realize. Do people understand what John Jones has been through? A lot of substance abuse, a lot of nonsense off the canvas. I don't know how you don't take Gane in the fight. I just don't. I will also say, what else did I want to bring up? Oh, speaking of this, it is, I don't know who sentenced this dude to 6 months, but did you see that former NFL player, Zach Stacy?
Yeah, I saw the video.
6 months. Now, he'll go to state prison. He'll probably do 2 months on a 6-month sentence. Here's what I'll tell you, and I said this on Twitter, and I'll say this again. Kelly, if that were my sister, he wouldn't have to worry about prison because he'd already be in the fucking ground. I would spend a long time in my bathroom with him, and I'd have a fucking hacksaw and an ice pick, and we'd go to town, and I'd call the police, and I'd say, hey, come pick this fuck's head up. It's on the fucking street. And they're going to say, why'd you do what you did?
Well,
now you know.
Here's your video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's why I don't trust the prison system. We need mob justice in this country.
Do you trust the El Salvadorian prison system?
Well, I'm talking about this country, but yes, absolutely. I trust that. But you know what they do in El Salvador if you don't go to jail? They just take care of you in the street if you're a thief or something. Yes.
I kind of think if we brought that back a little bit, maybe we'd see a lot less issues, if you will.
Yeah. So like you're saying, if you steal from people's houses and then they take you out in the middle of the town square and they
tar and feather you,
drop a boulder on your head, they wouldn't do it anymore. Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, drop a boulder on your head, that seems excessive for stealing, but I mean, there are still countries that will cut your hand off if you get caught stealing. I mean, absolutely. I think one of the more prolific moments in my childhood was when the kid in Singapore got in trouble and they caned him and they showed it on TV here. And I was like, holy shit.
Yep.
They'll do that. And
I mean, that's I bet they don't have problems with that anymore.
You're not even allowed to chew gum there. You
Right.
can't spit on the street. You can't do anything. I mean, the things that
Do you know who Gary Plauché is, by the way?
I don't.
Let me tell you a quick story before we go. Speaking of this, and this was one of the best videos ever made. Gary Plauché had a son, Jody. Okay, Jody liked the karate. He's in karate class. It came out several years later that his karate instructor was sexually molesting him. So they, pulled him. They extradited him back to Canada where they lived. And as the individual's walking through the airport with the marshal, Gary Plauché is got a phone, pretending he's on the phone. Guy walks by, and the dad shoots him in the head and kills him. And it was a big story. He actually went to court. I think he ended up getting 2 years. They had a lot of, they were very, helpful with him. And yeah, he killed the guy.
How long did he spend in prison?
I think 2 years. I think he did. It was a short sentence. The father. Yeah.
Okay. Probably was worth it then.
And what's crazy about the story is the video is there's actually a video of this. It's posted.
Well, yeah, there's surveillance, I'm sure, from the airport.
There was a news camera following them.
Oh.
And you see them pass the phone booth, and he shoots him in the head, and the marshal goes, "Why, Gary? Why?" And you see him just boom, and he just falls down. And that was that.
Holy shit.
It's a great video.
I think I'll keep most of my comments to myself, but I'll say I don't blame him.
No one does. That said, thank you for watching. A lot of fun talk today on the show. Always good to have Kelly here. Next week's going to be a wild week, guys. Okay, you got wall-to-wall hoops. And look, guys, I don't control when I go on. So will I be on earlier? No, probably not. There's not much I can do about that.
Unfortunately, it's just kind of the way the schedule works.
Absolutely.
But we will be on Saturday morning spaces this week.
Yes, tomorrow. If you're not checking that out, you should be. We always have 800 people in there. It's fun. And yeah, we have a good time. So come on Saturday. I believe Kelly, you'll host, or Megan will host.
Yeah, we'll have Megan host, and we'll run through some of these games before tip-off. Should be an excellent time, and I'll get that set up. It'll be 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, hour before tip. And then, Jeff, I think I'm back, Monday, Wednesday? What day do you want me back next week? And then I'm out for the weekend.
Yes, you're out.
On a girls trip, so I'm very excited to.
Well, you can come on whenever you want.
Perfect. I will text you.
Sounds good. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. Have a good night. Go buy Rough and Rowdy tonight. Buy rnr.com. Buy rnr.com. Buy rnr.com. Everyone have a great night. We'll see you Monday. Enjoy hoops. Bye-bye.